Recording.
Hey there, this is Meredith Loughran with Ragin', and I wanted to let you know that we encourage and promote independent creators and their projects through organic interaction, consultations, and more. Visit Nita and me at RaginAVC.com for details and contact information. Hit the button.
What's up, George? What's going on in the House of Craze tonight?
In the House of Craze, we got a packed house today. We have the return of the comic book school. We're gonna have D. Alley, KDS, Christian Stout, and Chris Burgos on the show, and we're gonna be talking about validation. Does a movie or a TV series validate our comic? Let's talk about it.
Validate this! Let's get it!
We are the only show for independents all around, giving you a platform to spread your word all over town. Catch the Craze is the place to promote to your fans with the dream of Medina and Sam the Crazy Man. Subscribe to our show and never miss an episode. It's time to get your mans, listen to us on the go. Updated every week, we've never missed a day. Join the squad, come on in. It's time to catch the Craze. If you are an independent, catch the Craze. Making moves on your own, catch the Craze. On your grind in the streets, catch the Craze. Join the movement, catch the Craze.
Yeah, George, we did it again. Come on now. You know you want to do it. Catch the Craze. Welcome to Catch the Craze podcast. I am your host with the most, Sam the Crazy Man Vera, and I am with
George, the Dreamer Medina. What's happening, Sam? What's happening, everyone? Welcome to another exciting episode of Catch the Craze.
Catch the Craze.
We are back. Another episode, another Friday. Happy Friday, everyone. Hope you had a great week. And thank you for spending the last day of the week right before the weekend with us, talking to our guests and our topic of the day. So this is going to be fun. We're going to have quite a few heads on the screen. The comic book school is back. For those who didn't catch it, we have these are recurring guests.
Yeah.
The comic book school has been on the show before. They were episode 232. So if you go into our archives and you want to check it out, go there, check that out. And we also have a new member though, Chris Burgos, who was also on our show individually, episode 269.
Word.
So check that episode out. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, hit that bell to make sure that you get reminders when we go, whether it's live or, it's a What's in the Box, it's a Crazy 10 or Less, or it's one of these shows. You'll get the notifications if you hit that bell to let you know that we are on. But yeah, welcome. And what's up, Sam? What's going on, dog?
What's going down? A lot of stuff. We are in the middle of our campaign of Forbidden.
Yeah, are we? Well,
yes.
I don't even know what the date is today.
Yeah, George, this is the 12th. This is actually the second week
12th.
of the campaign for Forbidden.
Okay.
George is acting up. I'd like to tell you where we are. I can't tell you because we're in the past. It's like deja vu.
We'd love to tell you.
We love to share with you, but I don't know, man.
Be nice, man. It'd be nice,
I'm smiling, hoping that we made it. We'll see.
I think we made it. I think we made it. I think we're into stretch goals now. Remember, it's running on 2 platforms. Do we want to hit the indie news or are we going to wait for that?
Indie news. In other news.
So we're in the middle of
Tops
November.
in the Bronx.
Forbidden is on Kickstarter and Indiegogo.
Forbidden is on Kickstarter and Indie. Who does that?
Yeah,
I do that. That's who.
If you're Team Indiegogo, go to Indiegogo right now. Pledge to the campaign there. If you're Team Kickstarter, go to Kickstarter. pledge right there. The only difference really is the covers that you're going to see on Indiegogo versus Kickstarter. And the only reason that was done is not just to double dip. It's because Kickstarter won't let you run a campaign if it's on another platform with the same image.
Right. So
like
so Indiegogo, there is an exclusive cover you only get on Indiegogo. You can't get it on Kickstarter, and that was by the interior artist for this issue, Prime Santra, and that was Indiegogo. And Kickstarter has the exclusive Kickstarter cover by Anibal Arroyo. What's available on both campaigns is the homage cover, the graphic novel, and the variant cover done by John Coates. But there are two things that are different from both campaigns. Number one, on Kickstarter, you had the first day bundles that started and ended after 24 hours. On Indiegogo, those bundles are features. So, because Indiegogo doesn't give you that first day feature that you get on Kickstarter, so decided for the Indiegogo supporters that it's a feature, so you can get that bundle. It's a great savings deal to entice the Indiegogo, because there's a disparity between the amount of people that I get on Kickstarter versus what I get on Indiegogo. So I just want to, entice my Indiegogo supporters, and hopefully you go out and tell your friends, hey, check these bundles out. Check out Forbidden. It's a really cool book. Sam's a cool guy. Every time I got my stuff in the mail, it was packaged right. Everything was bagged and boarded and mint condition. He really looked out. I got it early. He delivers on his promise. Those are all the things I'm hoping you're saying to your people to help drive traffic and help make this a success.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's I think it's already funded. I think by the 12th.
I've been thinking.
I hope. Yeah, high hopes. Also, don't forget that, unless we already crushed it, but the 75 backer goal gets you a free print. We have teamed up with Phil Russert over at Tragedy, whose campaign is also going on right now. So check that out. And for those first 75 backers, as soon as we get to the 75 backer goal, hopefully we're already there. Remember, we're in the past, recording the future in the present. So if we are at the 75 backer, then all of you and beyond will get a free print
to infinity and beyond
that Sam actually did.
Yes, and I'd like to show it to you, but at the time of this recording, I don't have the finished colored piece, and which is pretty.
That would have been nice.
That would have been very nice. It would have been fantastic.
Yes.
But if you go to the site, you'll see it. You go right now, you can see it. And
right now, man.
Yes, but in fact, let me see. Maybe I can show you the penciled version look like.
Maybe the pencils and ink.
Yes.
Did you ink it already too? It was ink.
Yes, I inked it as well.
Yeah,
I inked it as well. Where is that?
Send them that. Show them that while we wait.
Yes, what we're talking.
But make sure you go to Kickstarter. Make sure you go to Indiegogo. Those links will be in the description below, so make sure you check that out.
Right.
It's a fun story, man. This is the third book, which is the second issue, but it's the third book, second issue, and it's also a trade, compiled into a trade, so you can get all of it in one. You can get both. You can get the trade and you can get the single issues. If you're a collector, leave the single issues in the bag and boards and just read the heck out of that trade.
Yes.
So you can do both.
Yes. So I'm actually bringing it up right now so you can see it. This is the pre-edited version. So there's the piece that I did, which is fully colored. And you can see it's a Tragedy kneeling on top of the skulls, and with Desra from Forbidden standing above her. And then you have the main villain in Tragedy to her left, and then you have a creeper on the right. So it's this is going to be a digital print. This was hand illustrated, and you can also get the original art, this piece, for a mere $300 if it hasn't sold already. That piece is available. It's a one of a kind. It's a crossover of Forbidden and Tragedy. So if you're an art collector, you don't want that on your wall. It comes framed and packaged nicely.
Wow, look at that, framed.
You get it framed, bro.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's what you get. That's what you get out here.
That's
framed
what you
artwork,
get for
baby.
me.
That's it. That's it, man. And also, just real quick before we step out of the indie news, I just wanted to announce that the landing page and the /launch page for the Kickstarter that I will be doing for Wonder Duck next year in May will launch in January. So in January, you'll be able to start, hitting that, notify me. So just let you guys know that that's happening next year.
It's a good time to do it. Anytime sooner, people forget. That's a good time to do it. A couple of months before.
Do that. Yeah, a few months before that thing. So you have plenty of time to just hit that notify me button. And don't worry, I'll be reminding you guys all over social media, just like Sammy did with Forbidden. So, but yeah, make sure that you support Forbidden.
Yep.
And you probably won't see another Forbidden campaign till the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
Or
so
the end of
Forbidden.
next year,
So next year, fall. It's the final campaign for Forbidden, and it's for the full book. It's about 200 pages. It's for the full book, so it's 160 pages of story, and then an additional 40 pages, I believe, of behind-the-scenes stuff. Concept art, scripts, character bios, world maps, all that stuff. So it's a full collector's. So there's going to be a paperback version and a hardcover version. And the hardcover version is going to have the paperback's going to have the 160 pages. The hardcover is the collector's one, which is going to have the 200 pages. 200.
Woo!
And and that's going to be a big one. So I will probably launch the landing page sometime in the summer because it's going to kick off in the fall. But that Forbidden's going to be all. So you're going to have to wait. If you got the first 3 issues and the first volume graphic novel, thank you so much. But because we have several other projects that we're going to do next year. This project is complete. I don't want it to run extensively with every issue, so I'm more than willing to just do the graphic novel next year in the fall.
Would you be willing to offer, say for example, because I think it's so it'll be issues 3, right? 3, 4, and 5 is like a double-sized issue, basically, right?
Yes, it's 3, 4, 5, maybe 6.
If would you do something like a print-on-demand option for people who want to order it
after the campaign?
The individual, like just through.
Oh no, so you're gonna be able to get the individuals. If you still want the floppies, they're gonna be available in that campaign.
No, but outside of that campaign, let's just.
Oh yeah, when the campaign's over, yes, you're gonna get it. Just like right now, you can. Once this campaign's over, and let's say, you know what, I only wanted to get the first issue because I wasn't sure. You know what, you can go back to the website to crazycomics.com and you can pick up the other issues.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you won't do that for this. You won't do single issues for 3, 4, and 5. In other words,
I am going to do the single issues, but they're going to be available on the campaign. Yeah.
Oh, but on the campaign. I'm saying not that'll only be available on the campaign.
No, once the campaign's over, then you can get it on the website. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
I won't do it leading up to the campaign. No.
Yeah. All right.
Unless there's a demand for it, and I don't have that yet. I can. It's up to you. But I don't have it yet.
Well, yeah. I mean that's and actually, you know what? That's a great segue into our topic for today.
Yes.
Get your meds.
Let's get your med, baby.
It's time for your medicine.
Validation. Does a movie or TV deal validate our comic?
Yeah, it's funny that we were just talking about the fans, right? Mm-hmm. What the fans wanted, what the fans want. And I think that's the ultimate form of validation before we even talk about movies or TV series, because the fans are the ones that are going to make those TVs and those movies happen, right? Because if the fans want it, that's what's going to validate the worth of these books. But what do you think, Sam? As far as validation goes, do you think that a movie or a TV series validates our comic books? What do you think? What's your take on that?
I'm gonna put it in like layers. I think the first form of validation is when your peers recognize the quality and recognize you as because of your work, your body of work, accept you in the industry. So I think that's validation number one in my eyes. Not necessarily your family. It's really industry peers. That's number one. Number two, is the public. So if you got people who are really digging what you do, for me, that's the second form of validation. The ultimate form of validation is when a network says, we see viability with your product and we want to take it to the next level. That's the third level. But it starts with, you know what, we all want to fit in, right? Everyone wants to be, be recognized as a talent, as a professional. And so when you have peers who, even veterans in the industry who acknowledge, perfect example when we first got into the game, when Brian Polito gave us kudos. For me, I could have died at that spot and felt like I was accomplished. You know what I mean? It was like, holy crap, right? You know what I'm saying? Because we were wet behind the ears, bunch of knuckleheads, but they recognized, when the promoters of the event, Big AppleCon, recognized us and the quality of what we were putting out, they welcomed us with open arms, and we became a staple of the show. So I think for me, it's really about the industry first, then the consumer, and then the networks. Corporate. That's what I look at.
Yeah, I think, and before I even give you my take on it, I want to give a big shout out. The reason why we're talking about this is because I was watching J.D. Calderon. J.D. Calderon's got a show called Indie Comics Explained. And he had a guest on the show, C. Michael Lanning, who is actually Nita Lanning's husband from Rage and ABC. And he actually asked that question to the group they were talking to, validation, about validation. His was a little different, but similar concept. So I started thinking about it, and according to the Webster's dictionary, when you think about, well, what does validation mean, right? Now, we're not talking about to make legal. We're not talking about to grant official sanction. We're not talking about to confirm the validity of, say, an election or anything like that. We're talking about to recognize, establish, or illustrate the worthiness or legitimacy of something. Right?
Look at that.
How the worth.
I didn't even prep for this.
The worth of it, right? Yeah. Well, validation, right?
Yeah.
The worth. How is it worth it?
It's the
Now,
thing of it.
as an indie, your initial reaction is like, of course my stuff is worthy. It's worth it. I wrote it. It's mine. It's worth it, right?
Yeah.
But I go to this. I'll give you an example of worth, right? Like, I'm a huge sports fan. And I played a lot of basketball. I love basketball. I play basketball. I've watched a lot of guys on courts in the street, went down to Rutgers to just watch people play. And I'm looking at these guys. I'm like, yo, these guys are so freaking good. But none of them had made it to the NBA, right? The NBA is that validation. Making it to the NBA validates how good of a player those people are. I see they're great. But that validation happens at that level, right? They're validated at that level, even though they're good. But the world doesn't know until they're on that stage. The second example I'll give you is, and big shout out to Tone from across the hall. He's 1/3 of the nerds of the round, and he said something interesting a few months back when not forbidden, I say forbidden, when Invincible came out on Amazon Prime. He had never read the books, but he saw that series and he's like, yo, I got to go read those books. Right? It was that series that made him want to go back and read those books. That form of validation from there. And then I'll go back to you made a good point, Polito, right? Do you remember when we were selling these books at our table? And they looked great, they were in full color. But what was the one thing that everybody always seemed to ask or everyone wanted to know? Are you in diamond?
Yeah.
As if diamond was the validation. If you're in diamond, then I'm going to go in. I'm going to go buy one. If you're not in diamond, I'll wait till you get there. You know what I mean? That was that form of validation then. So when you talk about like the ultimate, right? That's that movie. That's that TV series. So unfortunately, it is a form of validation. Mm-hmm. I think that it does validate how good your book is or how good the concept that you're writing is, because these studios are willing to put money down and fund these things to happen. But like we said, I think we agree. I think it's about the fans too, though. That's the first. That's that level of validation, like you said, like your second level of validation are those fans, and those fans are the ones that are going to drive it to the upper level. So we can't forget that. Yeah, that is a form of validation. Probably the ultimate, because that's when you're making the money. That's when these guys are putting money down. They're gonna.
But it all depends too, because street ball, when you think about it, like for instance, West 4, New York, right, in a village, West 4, New York, they had a handball court there. the best of the best from all the boroughs played there.
Sure.
That was a form of validation, so you went to, in your neighborhood, they were sponsored tournaments, right? Handball tournaments, right? And so you might be good in your neighborhood in Queens, but when you get to play in what it's for, then oh, I'm in the big leagues. I'm with the big boys.
Yeah.
Right. So that's another form of, what I'm saying. So I think everything, it's really a test of your skills and a test of your hard work and the grind that you put into it. So for me, I was always intimidated, right? And so I remember the first time I got called out to go against this guy, and what was his name? He was really good. Troy. His name was Troy. And Troy was a really good handball player, and he called me out. And I had shoes on. I didn't have sneakers. And I was like, yo, I was always, for some reason, I always second guessed my skill. And so I was like, forget it. So he's like, yo, $20. And I was like, $20? I'm in high school. $20, right?
Yeah, we got shoes on, bro.
So we played, and I beat him. I hustled, though. Like, I dove. I was hustling with shoes on. And so he wanted to double or nothing. And I beat him the second time. And then from that point on, the confidence built. Next, I got invited to the tournament. Then I was like, oh, people see me as good. I didn't even think I was.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because, I used to play with my boys on the side, but I never went onto the courts against the big boys because I was like, I don't know if I can hang with them until I got called out. So I think, everyone's looking for a form of validation to just to be able to say, you know what, we see you, we acknowledge your skill, you just got your pin. You're one of the crew. Boom. Yeah. I'm good. Thank you. Hats off.
Yeah, and I think that's what we all are, like you said, we're striving for. I think that, but when you think about, oh well, what does that mean? If my book doesn't get picked up, or if my book it's not worth anything. No, it's worth. I'm sure it's worth something to you. It's always going to be worth something to us. You're not writing it or drawing it unless you find worth in it. You're not wasting your time either.
Right.
But there are levels to this game. There are levels to it, and so every time you put something out, or you want to make sure that you're hitting that next level until you reach that level of validation where you are big time. Because at the end of the day, I think we all want to succeed in this thing. We don't want to stay where we are. It's about succeeding. That's life. It's about just going, just being better than yourself yesterday, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting, the whole validation concept.
Yeah.
Because I think we get lost in that, what that really means.
Yeah. And if you have an opinion about this topic, please leave a comment below. And I could see that there were 3 people in the waiting room, and now there's 2. But yes. Leave a comment below. Let us know what you think. If you like it so far, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the show, please do so. So we're going to bring in our guests. We have Christian Stout. We have Chris Burgess and Aaron Donnelly that we're going to bring in. But before we do, I'm going to remind you that I have a campaign running right now for Forbidden. Here we go.
He killed his father. A curse on his people. Betraying his family in search of the truth. Awakening the evil behind the curse. Now they must race to save their people. Or die trying.
All right, we're bringing in our guests right now. Here we go.
All right, it's a show now. Look at these. Everybody's coming in. D, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Christian, what's going on?
How you doing?
What's up with the Christian with the K, Chris with the K? What's going on over here?
It's better. We're a lot cooler. Actually, so my mom wanted me to be a little different, and so everyone thinks I'm a girl in writing. That's how it's different.
That's funny. Well, welcome, guys. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We have a couple of repeat offenders on the show. I know, Chris, you've been on the show before. D, you've been on the show representing the comic book school. Christian, this is your first time, so we're going to take it
on your show,
yeah. Yeah.
All right, that's okay.
But yeah, no, thank you guys for coming on. And for those who are watching, we have members of the comic book school here. We have D. Alley. We have Chris Burgos, there it is, and we have Christian Stout. So welcome. We were supposed to have Ari on the show, but you know he's under the weather right now. So hopefully he gets better soon, and we'll catch up with him at another time. But what's going on, guys? How's everybody doing?
Cannot complain. Can't complain. I'm good.
Nice.
On your show, it can't get any better than that, right?
Oh, look at you!
There we go.
Look at that!
He's good.
When you don't have any hair, you have to compensate in other ways.
Yeah, it was like I feel like I'm in the movie The Wanderers. It's like the Baldies.
Right. Actually,
I'm making up for it. I put the hair down this week. There you go.
The new season of American Horror Story, if you guys have watched it, all the bad guys are these like crazy, disgusting, bald guys. So I felt offended. I felt triggered.
Oh man!
Nice.
So you guys are fresh. Well, not fresh off because this show is actually airing on November 12th. But you guys, at the time of this recording, you would have been kind of fresh off of the New York Comic Con, right? You guys had a nice little appearance there. I believe you guys had a panel. You guys have a new a second anthology now, right? So why don't we? Okay, so before we go there though, and I know Sam's like, "What are you doing, George?"
Yeah,
before
he's like,
we go
jump
there,
the gun.
Before we go there, but that's only because we've had a couple of them.
We haven't had
on
Christian
the show, but we're gonna talk to Christian first. So Christian, tell us a little bit about yourself, just your background, and
sure.
Introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. My name's Christian. In the comic book anthologies, I go by KDS just because I'm also a lawyer and I write really boring legal articles.
Nice.
So it seemed odd if you were to search my name and you would get a weird mix of sort of science fiction comic books and legal treatises. So just to keep them separate on Google, I go by that. My main creative background, I started as a musician, so I've done that for a long time. I've had some songs in video games, and I have a decent little following doing that. But for a long time, I was really interested in doing visual art too. So I had never actually, this is the second time I've made an actual comic book, and the second one. The first one was the first anthology. So during the pandemic, when Buddy announced that he wanted to try to get people who'd never done it before to get involved, I had drawn for years, and I like to write, so I decided to take the plunge. So I am learning the process as we go along, and the 8-page format is really great for doing that.
Yeah, well, you picked a great place to learn this because these guys have it down, man. I love how detailed it is, because I think that as creators, sometimes we need that structure, right? Because we're creators, so we just want to create, man. But it's nice to have that structure. I'll go to you, D. So tell us a little bit about yourself. And for those who haven't or missed it, we did have D on the show, and I think I wrote down the episode actually. Yeah, episode 232 is when we had you guys back.
Because I couldn't remember.
Yes, 232. That was the episode you guys were on. But go ahead, D. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is D. Alley. I work with Comic Book School. I actually am one of the people who helped found the 8-page challenge along with Buddy. Basically, I was in kind of a creative rut. I'm an animator in my day job, so that was a really bad place to be. And I went to 2019 Comic Con. It was my first big con. I've been to one or two kind of small, like mall cons, and had a good time, but nothing prepared me for that. And it was a lot of people and a lot of stuff. And I ended up going to a lot of like creator panels, one of which was Creator Connections, where Buddy took a liking to me and was like, "Hey, Red, cool. You can totally do this and that and the other thing." And so he asked me why I showed up in all of his panels. And I said, well, I'm trying to kind of kickstart my creativeness. Like it's gone slack for a couple of years. And he said, well, why don't you have a comic book by next year? And I was like, I don't know if I could do a good comic book. He said, no. Doesn't have to be good. Just has to be done. And I was like, all right. So I went home and I put on my project manager hat and I made a schedule and I sent it to him. And he said, this is really good. Do you mind if I share it? We tweaked it a little bit. So it was more comics than animation based. And he got some edits from some real world editors, Marvel, DC, independent people that he knew. And he published it to the community and everybody jumped on board. They were like, well, we want to do this too. And the next thing you knew, we had like 13 comic book teams that all wanted to do these comics. So we thought, well, let's let's publish them. So we put them in an anthology and we published it, and that became the first anthology, Panel One. We won a couple of awards. That was really cool. And everybody was like, okay, let's do the next one. And Ari, who is my co-editor, looked at me and was like, okay, let's do this again. And so we did. And Chris came on, thankfully, and took some of the project management load from us, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And we released the second one for New York Comic Con. So both are 144 pages, free download at comicbookschool.com. And I'm currently trying to get them printed. So we should have printed copies for the con circuit next year. But if you want to join, just go to comicbookschool.com and click on the forums or message boards and sign up. We'd love to have more people. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. And now, so Chris, I know you have Tales Beyond, right? You were on the show talking about it. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a writer traditionally. I came from the film world, and it was like a crash and burn. Hard crash and burn, like 3 slow years of like burn, because I came to New York right at the time of the Depression in 2008. And yeah, I've been having this like creative itch where I've got to put something together. And someone said, why don't you take your film scripts or your television scripts and try to turn them into a comic? And after years of doing the same thing that Aaron did, I was going to Buddy's panels throughout New York Comic Con for years. I was going to all these other professional development panels, Comic Con, other places and stuff. And eventually I was just like, you know what, I can do this. I just got to find an artist, and, you know, scrounged up some coin, talked to some people, met some great names, some good artists, and was able to put together some comics. And yeah, that's pretty much my story. And right now I started Tales Beyond during the pandemic with my wife, who has pushed me hard. She's like, I want a house, so let's get these books published. And it's always good to have that motivation, whether or not it's like the pat on the back motivation or the kick in the ass kind of motivation. Right.
You don't move. Yeah, you're the one.
It'll definitely move you, and it's awesome. And yeah, so that's where I'm at. And I joined up with Buddy and the comic book school last year for the anthology. I did 2 stories. This year's anthology, like Dee said, I was on it project managing, and that was hard. Mm-hmm. That was an undertaking. And being like your own project manager, where you're dealing with your own comic and everything, that's one thing. But then having to deal with like 30 plus creators and timelines and like, you know, making sure everyone's on schedule and like all that, it blew my mind. It was a great learning experience, which is exactly what Buddy pushes for with the comic book school. Yeah. Being you know, an educational resource and all. So I definitely got something out of it. I'm very thankful for, you know, AA and D pulling me in, helping me along the way. And I'm thankful for Buddy to keeping this train going to publish 2 more of my stories. So nice. Yeah.
Good, man. Good for you. Yeah, like I said, I saw some of the photos that you guys posted from the Comic-Con, and I love the camaraderie. I think it's not like, oh, we're just working with some people doing some comics. Like, you guys really get along, and it looks like you guys really have a good time together. So that's nice to see. That's always nice to see. I think that collaborating in the comic book world, sometimes it could be a little difficult, because if you're not working with the right person, sometimes it could be like, listen, dude, this is my story, so do it this way. What are you doing? No, I don't want it, drawn that way. How do you guys avoid some of those? I mean, obviously you guys are very structured in what you do, but do you find that maybe some people don't actually get along as well? Do you guys have to kind of navigate through that? Have you guys encountered any of that? And I'll go around, I guess, around the circle there. I'll go with you. Start with you, Dee. Have you guys found anything like that?
We haven't had too much of that, because we're basically a free educational resource. Nobody's really putting down money for this. So the only thing in the game is your name and your ego. Right. And if your ego gets in the way, you find out pretty quick that we're not really geared that way. I mean, the whole community is based off of making everybody the best they can be. And so if you come in going, well, I'm going to be better than you, we're like, great, what can you show us? And then they kind of just deflates, so there's not a lot of people who stick around who want to cause friction or drama, right? Because we're all there to learn, and we're all there to make each other better. And I think that really comes from Buddy. Like, as much as he claims to have this big ego and this big head and puts on these funny little acts about how great he is, in the end, he's there for you. Like, he's there to help everybody else, basically be the resource he would have wanted
Right.
if he could have had one get when he got into comics. And so he's always about like, what can I do to help you get yours done? What can I help to, you know, and I picked up on that real quick and ran with it. And I think everybody else does too. So if you come in, you know, swinging, we're all just going to let you swing yourself out, you know, and there's really not, we haven't had that friction. Now, I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I haven't seen it yet. So
I got you. Did you guys want to add anything to that? I think D kind of nailed it. But
yeah, I'd say that to echo D, Buddy is one of the nicest, most genuine people I've ever met. Like he's just legitimately the nicest guy you'll meet. And I think when you have someone organizing your community who is like that sets the culture for how everyone else interacts. So, I mean, to be honest, there are really, really talented artists and writers that have been in there way better than I am. And it's really inspiring to see how they can all work in this community and be part of something much bigger and not have egos about it and really put together a really great product in the end.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow that up. It's weird because like every interview, podcast, whatever that Buddy's not on, I tend to find that it's like we're all talking about like Jesus. Yeah. That's how nice and awesome Buddy is.
all right, don't overinflate his ego, okay?
He's gonna love this. You're gonna have to call him JC.
He's always looking for a promotion.
Has an ego. Yeah.
He's our buddy Christ.
Seriously, buddy Christ. But seriously, it's awesome to be, you know, associated with awesome people. Okay, and Buddy is just awesome people, and the people that have, for the most part, completed projects in the anthologies, they're awesome people.
Yeah.
It's like Dee said, most of the people that pretty much come in swinging or come in with an ego and stuff, they don't even finish a project. They're the ones that either like, okay, a good example is when we're partnering up to see which artists want to help out which writers or whatnot. You know, there's kind of an onus on both sides. It's like, okay, well, you have to seek out somebody. And that's part of the creative process where, like, if you're a writer and you want someone to draw your stuff, you don't just post it online like we have you guys do and just let it sit. It's like, if you like someone's artwork or if you like someone's style or something, it's on you to go out and say, hey, I like your style. Would you be interested in my story? Right. And there are people that they come in steamrolling ahead and they're like, yeah, I want to do the anthology. Here's my ideas. Who wants to draw them? And that's it. And they just walk off and it's like, okay, well, why didn't you have a finished or why didn't you start a project? Right. And it's because, because no one wanted to work with me. Well, how do you know no one wanted to work with you? Did people actually tell you no one wanted to work with you? Or did you not take those extra steps as a creator to go out and find someone who wanted to do it? Like me, all of my artists that I've worked with for the past 2 years, they're all over the world. I've worked with someone from Mexico City. I've worked with someone from Argentina. I've worked with someone from the Philippines, none of which are all in the comic book school. And I've tried to bring them into the community that way. Yeah. And it's the people that have finished products and have these stories in the anthologies tend to be very humble, very motivated, hungry, willing to learn, and just awesome people. And that's what I think is the best part about the community, is that we're attracting awesome people.
Yeah, I think it trickles down from what you guys are saying. So if Buddy is JC, right? If he's that guy, it trickles down. It's like we have no choice but to be like this because it's not going to work any other way. And then the other thing I think is that you guys are showing how to network, which is something that I think creatives don't really tend to do, because some writers are introverts, right? We don't talk to anybody. We just write. Okay, so you guys are kind of forcing them out of that comfort zone. Hey, no, man, you got to go in there and you got to ask, do you want to draw my book? It's not, it's not just going to happen on its own. I don't know if you had a question, Sam. I'm kind of like,
nice New York Comic Con cup. Thanks for showing it off, buddy.
Like that?
Yeah, show off.
You know what? I noticed the T-shirts, and I was going to ask you guys about the T-shirts, but my man's like product placement. He's like, let me take a sip real quick.
Right in the screen. Right in the screen.
I missed that memo. I have Arnold Schwarzenegger on mine.
Yeah.
No,
y'all are gonna get the tails.
You're soon enough. You're soon enough, Christian.
The question I had was, what do you find to be the one thing that you constantly have to revisit with the creative teams that you wish that you wouldn't have to on the next project?
Communication. Like you were saying, most of us are, especially in artistic fields, introverts. It's not just writers, artists, you know, a lot of us, especially in some of our generations, I know, Chris, you're a little bit younger than me. Being a nerd and being into comic books when I was a kid was a rough gig, you know, even if you were a guy and you were allowed to like those things.
It wasn't easy for guys when I was in high school being into what
No, you had to hide it.
But here's the thing, I wasn't even allowed to be into it.
That's true. Yeah, there were levels to that too.
That was why do you even want to be into comics or video games or superhero? Because you're a girl. So we have a tendency to kind of hold on to that and be like, well, this is my thing, and I only share it with people that I know are already going to like it because I don't want to get made fun of or told I can't. Or so when we get into these teams and we start pushing people to network and introduce, like, we're all into comics. Like, we love making comics, we love reading comics, we love experiencing them, and sharing that with other people who are like-minded is easier now than it ever was. But at the same time, sharing your own personal story that you've written or drawn, or that you've drawn for someone else or written for someone else, that in itself is an obstacle to overcome. And so a lot of people will be like, well, I don't want to post until the end. It's like, no, you have to put it out there so that we can help you make it better, so that we can critique it. Or if you're not going to make it, don't get embarrassed. Just tell us, hey, I need another week. You know, this is not professional development. You have to hit a deadline or you're fired. This is, we're helping you learn. And if you didn't give yourself enough time, well, that's a learning experience in itself. And so people have a tendency when they're starting out to hold things very close to the chest and not talk to your editor, your team, the community. And one of the things that I think would help everybody immensely is to be more communicative, to basically say, hey, I'm not getting this done. The first thing we'd respond is, what can we do to help you? Like, even Chris reached out to me because I've done this twice and I haven't finished my project either time because I'm so busy helping other people. He's like, Erin, you need to stop. What can I do to help you get this done? And so that's what you have to do, is you have to step up and say, okay, this is my idea, and accept feedback. You don't have to do the feedback. We're not going to say you absolutely can't do it unless you change this name to Esmeralda. Like, who cares? We're trying to make it better. And I think that one of the things that we really need to work on as a community is communicating those things.
Ditto.
Enough said.
That's it. Yeah, no, communication is the key to any business relationship, any personal relationship. Communication is key for a lot of stuff. Unless you are out there literally writing your own book to publish for yourself, like, you got to communicate. And it is one of the things that everyone can do better. But we definitely need to have a little bit better of a working environment, as far as like making sure that we're all talking to each other, making sure that everyone's on the boards, giving feedback, that kind of stuff. So,
and it's one of those things. It's not judgmental. Like, we can all do it. I don't communicate, 2 or 3 weeks out of the year, and Ari's kind of got to poke me and be like, where have you been? And I'm like, oh crap, I haven't told you stuff. Okay, let's have a call. So it's like, everybody's got their moment. It's not a judgmental thing. It's just like, sometimes you need to poke the other person and be like, hi, we haven't talked in a couple of days. You okay?
Right. What about you, Christian? Have you noticed anything that?
Well, I was more involved in the editorial side on the first one. This one I didn't do as much. But one of the things that I think would be useful for the community is figuring out how to keep creative teams together over multiple volumes. Because I think once you get into a vibe working together, now I say this as someone who did everything myself, so I don't have an actual team, but from observing other teams, and from, like, in my professional career, working with people who have done projects together, I think this holds true. Once you learn how to work together, you've learned things that you can't really describe, and that are very useful when you go to move on to the next project. So from a perspective of managing the community, one of the things I would look for is figuring out how to keep the band together from volume to volume, to make sure that it's, you have a team that now can plug in and produce that content for you.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, coming from, like I talked to Sam to death about how much I like sports, but I think that when you play for a team and you guys have played together for a while, it's almost like you can pass the ball with your eyes closed and know that your teammate's going to be there. So there is that that chemistry that you build when you've worked with somebody for a while. Now, my question to you guys is and I think I've asked you this before, but if you're watching this and you've been wanting to get into comics, but you're kind of like intimidated by the industry, right? Because there's so many comic books out there, so many great things, and they want to join, the comic book school. Obviously, there's the website, but can you kind of talk them through that process? Like, I know, Chris, you were saying, hey, listen, you got a story, but you also have to talk to how easy is it to talk to somebody about being on your book? And what if they've already have a partner? Like, what do you do then? Like, kind of like some of those pitfalls that they may find. Can you guys kind of walk us through it? And I'll let you guys, whoever wants to, I don't want to pick on anybody, but, Chris, go ahead.
I'll go. Yeah.
Go ahead.
What's really cool about this, about making the anthology, is Buddy still treats it like it's an educational platform, first and foremost. So when you go to the website, there's a breakdown of all the different steps that we're going through as we go through them. So if it's that time of year, when we're starting the anthology or whatnot, you're going to have like a web post breaking down, okay, come up with some ideas. This is the theme. Don't worry about looking for anybody for it yet. Just think of some ideas, mull them over, throw them on the message boards, and see what people like about them, see which ones you should work on versus the ones that people don't like as much. And it starts there. Then like the next step would be like how to like team up with somebody and create a team. On top of that, scripting and everything. So there's like a really easy way of being walked through it by hand holding on Buddy's part. As far as how easy it is to actually join the community and be part of the anthology, it's ridiculous easy. Like it's
just sign up.
Yeah, you literally just like you sign up, you check out the website, once a week or whatnot, see if there's any new steps going on, and you can literally reach out to anybody in the community. Everyone's got a handle on the site. So if you like someone's stuff, or even if you're just liking their comments about, I don't know, Batman versus Superman, just say, yo, your ideas were awesome, or your ideas were whack. These are my reasons why. Hey, you're cool. Let's talk to each other. Yeah. And so it's really easy to reach out to anybody in the community. And once you make that initial step of talking to somebody, even once, it makes it a whole lot easier to be able to follow all those other steps and produce the actual work that goes in the anthology.
Right. And I'd add for that first step, for people to go back to your original question, for the first step where you're thinking, I'd like to get involved, I don't know, like, what am I going to do? Whether you're a writer or an artist, that first step can just be something that is tailored to who you are. So if you're an artist, like, I'd really love to draw something that's like X and see what people say. Or if you're a writer, be like, hey, I've got a plot idea that's like this. So you don't have to come in and say, I've got a script that's ready to go here, or like, here's every step of the outline for the idea. It can be something more aspirational and really from where you're coming from as a creator.
The other thing we do is one of the reasons that we go on a lot of these shows is to kind of show people who we are. Because obviously internet connections are not like, going to meet us at the con. A lot of us met Buddy at the cons, at his panels. And so there was that connection, the in real life connection of meeting someone. And he's very charismatic. And the whole anthology is based off of creator connections, which was his kind of speed dating for comic book creators, where he gets all the artists and he puts them on one side of the room, and he gets all the writers and he says, you line up on the other side of the room, letterists, colorists, unicorn editors, you sit in the middle, and then you kind of you get together speed date style, and you just rotate and give each other cards and talk out ideas. And that's one of his panels that he does at all the cons. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to do it this year because they were worried about the close connection with that many people. But it's still one of the things that brings a lot of us together. And so the forums is very much like that. If you're not ready to commit, you can still jump on the forums and comment. You don't have to be in the anthology as a creator to go on and read other people's stories and give your 2 cents or ask for 2 cents if you want to post something that maybe you're not ready to put in the anthology. So there's always that back and forth. We've had a couple people who came in the first anthology and they weren't ready. And so they posted some stuff, they got some feedback, but they had other things going on. Lord knows in the last couple of years, we've all had things going on. And so they said, no, I'm not ready to publish. Okay, that's fine. Take your time, do it at your own pace. Nobody's pushing you that you have to do something. I mean, if you want to be in the anthology, you have to do the steps. But if it takes you 3 years to do the steps, that's your prerogative. And so there's no pushing, there's no judging beyond what you want the community to get from you. So I think going in and talking to people and then getting on the YouTube channels like yours and, you know, the show that we have every Tuesday night where Buddy basically talks to pros, getting on in the comments, finding friends, you know, and we're all around. So you can get us on the forums at any time. We had one guy who got on this year. He said, hey, I saw your anthology. I really want to join. I do these graphics. And he messaged me directly on the forums and said, you know, what do you think? And I was like, these are really cool. I really literally putting together the anthology. I don't have time to talk to you right now, but you're excellent. Please email Buddy. So he did. And then he ended up doing several graphics for the cons this year for Buddy's panels. And so it's really about just reaching out for what you're comfortable with.
Right. So, I mean, this is, you've already have 2 in the pipeline. So we talked about one of the things that you'd like to see change, but what worked from the first one that you applied on the second one?
I think breaking down the steps is the biggest part. Because most people, when they approach a comic book, have either an epic story in their head, or they're not sure how to start, or they see the finished product and they go, there's no way I could do this. And so breaking it down into the steps, I think really helped open it up to a lot of creators who wanted to do it themselves and couldn't tackle that sort of avalanche of mountain of work, or weren't sure how to connect to a team to get their stuff done. Right. And by breaking it down in those ways, we're basically saying, okay, take a little bite at a time and you'll get through the entire meal. The other thing that I think works really well with us is that because we're not for profit and we're not paying anybody and we're not getting any money for this, there's no, like we said earlier, there's no ego. And like, if you don't finish, yeah, it sucks, but we're not going to cut you off at the knees, you know? So it's one of those things, like as much as you invest in it is as much as you're going to get back. And I think that really works for a lot of different people on a lot of different levels.
I would say, as someone who was completely new to making comics on the first one and going through the process and seeing what we did this time, one of the resources that worked really good and I was happy to see is still available would be there would be intermittent conversations with different like pro creators who would then help you sort of understand the individual steps. So like on the script writing one, we would have like someone who worked at, say, like Marvel, for instance, would talk to us about how script breakdowns work, or maybe Buddy might have done that once. I think he used his script that he did for a short Marvel piece there. But then on for doing like thumbnails, we had a different person that there was like a live conversation we had with. This year for some of the community, Buddy got us to some sessions with Howard Chaykin to see his way of going about the comic book creating process. So being involved in the community and getting access to those sorts of resources is really valuable, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, that's something that you don't get. Like you know what I mean? Like these people aren't that accessible to you if you're not, you know, like it's not just something.
Buddy knows. Yeah, Buddy knows everyone, and everyone likes Buddy, so everyone's happy to do Buddy a favor.
He's Jesus. He's Jesus.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris?
Please don't tell him that.
Let's not let Buddy watch this episode.
Hopefully that doesn't offend him. I don't know.
I think it'll offend him. That's I just true. Think you'll give him a big head. He doesn't need that.
What about you,
Chris? He already loves him enough.
I'm gonna second what Christian just said. The resources that Buddy gives to the community, to give creators in general just an understanding of what the step is and how to do what they're doing. It's just awesome. Like people pay ridiculous hundreds of dollars to get pros out there who like, okay, well, this is what I do during scripting, and like masterclass for Neil Gaiman is worth a couple $100 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then you're able to watch Buddy pick the brains of these pros. And one of the ones that definitely influenced me a lot on this anthology was when he brought Joseph Village in. He's the the editor of Heavy Metal magazine, and we had a format last year for the first anthology where it was all comic stories, and then at the end was all the prose stories. And after looking at what Heavy Metal did and how they format their book and everything, with a voice on the editorial process this time around, I definitely pushed for that similar, like, we should use Heavy Metal's view on the way they format and everything. And so it definitely got me to understand why we would mix the stories this time as opposed to splitting them in half. And just being able to see an editor's point of view, which is something I've actually never really done much of. Normally I'm just sticking to writing and do my lettering and stuff, and then I can understand art because I went to art school, but seeing how an editor works through the processes that they do and why they format things and do things the way that they want to do, it was completely eye-opening for me. And just like they said, just having those resources available for the creators to understand what each step of the process is doing and what you're supposed to do during those steps, that's the best thing that CBS has for it right now.
Yeah. No,
But
that's
he's
amazing.
real big on not having a barrier to entry. So he doesn't want it to be, the old white men's club. He doesn't want it to be only the people who can afford to pay a certain price. It's for everybody. And we welcome everybody. And so there's no cost for coming to the website and getting a submission guideline to any one of the numerous publishers that Buddy knows. I call it Buddy's Rolodex. If you want to meet somebody in comics, Buddy probably knows them. And if you make friends with Buddy, he can probably make the connection. I'm not saying go to Buddy and be like, I want to meet this person.
Right.
Knowing Buddy puts you on the board to meet amazing people who, they're happy to ask you questions or answer your questions rather. But it's one of those things, there's so much going on in their world that in order to stop and take the time, having that monetary value for them, gives them a reason to go on certain platforms and do master classes and panels and things like that. But for Buddy, it's much more, we're going to have a chat and we're just going to talk about what it is that we do and love about comics. And who doesn't love doing that if you're already in comics? And so it's one of those things that because of Buddy's connections, we can have access to those pros that we wouldn't normally have. And it's for everyone. So.
And it's not just Buddy's connections also. It's, people have brought in other connections that Buddy's AA brought in one of the writers, I think, from one of the anthologies that he was on. And Buddy brought that person in for an interview. I mean, I know you guys, you fine gentlemen, through thanks to Ari. Because he's the one that's been helping set up all this stuff. So it's the community networking of the whole CBS and everything. It's definitely a high point, and it's a good mark for the school.
Well, and I wanted to ask you guys about that because you guys, the last time you were on the comic book school was back in March for D, and with you, Chris, it was I think it was a little after that. Did you guys, and even for you, Christian, did you guys do shows or do any of these appearances before our show? I'm not saying, we're the ones did you do anything before? And the reason why I asked that question is because I'm leading to this question. Do you feel that being involved in the comic book school has built up your confidence to a different level? Because I'll tell you this, I've seen you guys, we talked a few months back, and you guys are a lot more relaxed, a lot more cool, a lot more let's just shoot the shit and let's just have some fun than you were. Back then you were a little more let me answer the questions that are being asked and that's all I'm gonna, and now you're we Jesus, and it's a different vibe. So do you find that this has actually built your confidence up?
The anthology's done, first off. So we're not right now.
You're right.
So that's definitely part of it.
Okay.
But I can actually tell you like straight up. Yes, my confidence levels have gone up. Comic Book School, hands down, has been a great resource for me and Tales Beyond in general, my indie label, because like I've got it on my website. Right, I'm looking at my website right now. I have a page specifically dedicated to all the creators I've worked with, along with all the podcasts I've been on or other places, interviews or whatnot. And before I was on with you guys, July 30th, I was on 3 other podcasts. That's it. Whereas since you guys,
Damn.
yeah, it's like 12 or 13 more.
Right.
Yeah, I'm losing count. And so
Yeah.
there's I don't think I would have had any of those appearances if it wasn't for my connection through Comic Book School.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to network with podcasters, or I didn't know how to set up my own PR at all. And Ari taking a huge step for all of us and basically setting a lot of this up. It's built my confidence to reach out to podcasters and interviewers and stuff like that. And it's made it a lot easier. So yeah, for me, hands down, as a resource, I feel a lot more comfortable. Thank you very much, Comic Book School, buddy, Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a similar experience. I've only been on a few podcasts for Comic Book School, but one of the things from working with Buddy is learning that I need to promote what I do and actually try to put it out there. Like I'm sort of obsessive about creating things. I like to just make things and then release them and then forget about them and move on to a new thing, which I have been aware of for a long time is a terrible thing to do. And then just from having conversations with Buddy, I've come to accept that I need to try to actually promote the things I do. And it is a helpful thing to learn and to watch all the other people in the community, see how they are able to use social media effectively, see how people are using podcasts effectively, because it's not naturally what I like doing.
What about you, D?
For me, it's the community in general. Like if you had me on this podcast by myself, I'd be like, sure, it's a thing, like new stuff and comics. Yeah. But because I know the guys are here, it's kind of like they'll follow up on my answers and I'll follow up on theirs. And we're a community in a group. Buddy loves to throw me on camera when we're doing live streams, especially when I'm not prepared and I'm like, oh crap, I phone stuff. And so I kind of have come to expect to be on camera more. And since I think I live alone, it's become my sort of lifeline since COVID. I've kind of been living alone now for like 4.5 years, whereas everybody else is like, oh, this is what your life is like. I'm like, yeah, it's in this little box. Hi, we're all here now. And so, so it's kind of my lifeline now. And having Comic Book School has kind of saved my sanity because I think I definitely would have been alone too long without it. So
yeah. It's definitely a much more relaxed vibe doing this. Most of the time when I'm on filmed, it's to argue with people about laws and debate. And, it's a much tenser situation than talking about comic books.
It's very
We can argue about comic books if you want, Kirsten.
I'm a very argumentative person. I know I may not seem it, but I'm willing to argue about anything you want. They teach you that in law school.
There you go.
Oh
Nice.
man.
Nice. So what's the future hold for the Comic Book School?
More comics.
More comics. Always more comics.
Volume 3.
I like that you guys had a theme this year for the and we didn't even speak about the anthology, but you guys had a theme, right? Like what is it, the Time In? I think
Time In, like a hotel. Yeah.
And then you could just do, and so that's actually good because Time In, right? You think, okay, well, what the hell does that mean? It can mean anything you want, right?
Exactly.
You could have the word time in somewhere, or it could be a time. Like, so tell us a little bit about the thought process behind doing that. And is that going to continue? Do you have a theme for next year?
So we currently do not have a theme for next year. We had a lot of back and forth about that. Originally, I think Buddy had come up with the idea of having the entire book theme to see kind of how everybody would react to it. Some people react very well. Some people did not. I think it was very interesting, especially for beginning creators in a creative space, to have a theme that they had to kind of address somehow. because going into the professional industry, and I think a lot of people don't quite understand that comic book school is the creation and business of making comics. So we're trying to prepare people as much as they want to be prepared to go into the comic book industry. And one of the things that you really need to learn if you're going to go in and work for, you know, DC, Marvel, Dark Horse, or even Archie Comics is they're going to tell you what story they want. They're going to tell you which characters you can draw, which characters you can write for. And so if that's not what you want to do, they're not going to hire you. So constricting the theme to be, you know, really loosely this variable of the time in gave people sort of this creative box that they had to work within or just outside of, and they had to address it in some way. We weren't real strict with the rules. Like as long as you had the time in mentioned somewhere, you were in. Like we even had a couple scripts that got all the way to like script revisions, and I read them. I was like, there's no mention of a time in. There's no mention of an in. There's no mention of time. Can I get something here? And they're like, oh, well, the vehicle that they're in is Name the Time In. I was like, cool, we're good. You know, but just finding that way to creatively address this theme was something that I think a lot of people hadn't done before. And so I don't know if we're going to continue to do that moving forward. Maybe we'll do it every other year. Maybe we'll only do it, you know, on occasion. I don't know. I specifically told the guys that I'm not doing anything anthology related for at least a month after it. So I have till November 2nd to not talk about the third anthology.
I'm actually, yeah, I'm surprised you got that much out of her.
well, listen. This is really November 12th, so she's kind of going along,
right,
with the whole thing. So yes,
when November starts, then we'll start what we'll do then.
I personally like the idea when Buddy brought it up of having a theme for the volume. I totally get why some people don't like it. Honestly, it made it much more difficult. But again, as someone who's like really new to the whole process, being forced to have arbitrary constraints that you have to think around it's really creatively invigorating in a lot of ways. I would, you know, my suggestion to Buddy, if he asked me, would be come up with a theme, but just make it non-binding. So this way, at least for new creators who are trying to figure out, like, I want to do something, I don't know what to do. It might be something to put their stakes in the ground around and build it out. And you might get kind of an interesting mix of things. And then you don't have to announce that the whole anthology is necessarily about it, but there still could be something that kind of binds them all together.
Yeah.
I personally like that.
Yeah. What about you, Chris? What do you think?
I liked it. I'm not gonna lie. My two stories were, I guess you can argue, I think maybe some of the loose end stories where, like, I did not want to have like some form of time traveling hotel or anything like that. Yeah. I wanted to go a little bit more broad with the definition of time in, and like both of my stories actually have more along to do with their location. They take place within a tavern or within an inn, and there is a time aspect. Like you see something in one of the stories, you see something happening in the past, and it's affecting what's going on now. Or, you know, something from the past pops up now or something. And that's how I interpreted the time in. And some people might say that's not a loose interpretation at all. It fits along it. I tend to think, compared to some of the other stories, it's definitely looser. But I actually liked the challenge of having the theme, because it definitely pushed me as a creative a lot more than just like, hey, let me whip up a story.
See, how Chris handled that is exactly what I was thinking as like a general idea. So this way you have it be non-binding. So it really is like an idea spark for, you know, creatives who don't have anything ex ante that they necessarily want to do. You'll get a lot of really interesting material that'll come out around that theme that, you know, you're not announcing this is what this anthology is about, but you'll see an interesting thread running through the stories when you step back from a meta level.
Yeah, I think to your point, Dee, and even, you know, with you guys, I think that when you think about, okay, if you want to be in this industry and you want to work for a company, you're going to be asked to write about certain things. And what best way to do that than to, here you have the best of both worlds, right? Because you can create your own story. All we ask is that you put time in this case, for example. That's all it is. And like you said, but then to me, it's like you should look, if you're a creative person, you should look at it, okay, take that challenge and say, how am I going to make this work? right? Because then that's going to open up your creative mind. So I think you guys should continue doing the whole theme thing, only because for me personally, I'm not a huge fan of anthologies when I don't know what the heck's going on in an anthology. Like when I turn the page and it's all over the place, I'm going to put the book down and say, oh, good work, man. Thank you. Keep up the good work. But I'm not going to read it because there's no cohesiveness to it. There's no theme. There's no, I like the theme idea. So I think you guys should continue it. Tell Buddy, please continue the theme idea.
All right, we'll put that in as your vote.
Please.
We'll say prayers tonight to the Holy Buddy.
Yes, please.
Right.
Well, and I'm glad you guys are talking about that. So what percentage of the population that are involved in the anthologies have inquired about not having themes and having individual titles within the anthology?
So of the people who contributed this year who are in, I think only about, I'm trying to think of how many people we had. It wasn't a large percentage of people who turned in something for the anthology this year that complained about it. So most of the people who said, I think this is stupid, or I don't want to do it, or, I don't understand why I'm being constrained. They didn't turn something in, or they chose to, delay or whatever. But of the people who turned stuff in, even those people who didn't quite understand it at first and had to make the edit of, we're somehow addressing it. Most of them came up with either something perfectly literal, as in the time in, or they said, that's not my story, so I'm just going to stick it in where creatively as possible. So for those people who basically disagreed with the theme, there was a lesser amount of them that actually turned something in.
Right.
And I really find that kind of disappointing, because it was like, just because you don't agree with the theme doesn't mean you shouldn't try and continue your story. And even for those people who didn't turn theirs in on time, I still strongly suggest finishing the story, because then you have it done. And so it was one of those things, like, it's kind of like a little kid who says, I don't want to play with that toy, so I'm taking my toys and going home, It's
They don't play with anybody.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Ari's not here, but I think he did a great job, because he's got a superhero, right? Mr. Stupendous. And I think he took advantage of the theme to give his character another adventure, right? Because that's what that's what it does in anthologies. Like, if you can write an 8-page story about your superhero and put him in an adventure, that's just another way to keep the stories going for your character. In that case, I'm just saying that worked for that, for example.
If Ari were here, he was talking about this the other day. Buddy actually challenged those people who had stories before to use those same characters, to use the same IP, to push the idea that once you have an IP, making them into new stories is the creative challenge.
That's right.
And so Ari took to that, like a duck to water. He basically was like, okay, how can I make Mr. Stupendous in the time in? And so he worked that out. I was lucky enough to be able to work with him on a couple of those pages, and he really knew what he wanted. Like, he took that challenge and just went for it all the way, and he wrote a great story, and now he's kind of eager to do more. And I feel like it really sparked his creativity. Several people actually, I think, felt that way. Jared with Meat Bucket Mega Babes did one. A couple of people also did continuation stories. So it was really a good creative spark for those people who already had an IP to push it to a new level of creative development.
And I think that what it does is it builds almost like an arsenal of just stories for you. So if Ari ever wanted to put an anthology of his own character together one day, he's got 2 stories already. He's got 16 pages of his own book that he can just publish later on if he wants to. So if you keep working it that way, you can really get a lot out of what you guys are doing, is my point. Like, you can definitely build from what you guys are doing on your own.
Point, because we are publishing the anthology free, and because we are doing things with Comic Book School, we do not own the IP. Like, Comic Book School doesn't take your international, I'm losing my mind.
Intellectual
property. International propriety. Basically, you still own your stuff. Right. So when you turn it into us, we reserve a small right just to publish for the anthology, and just to use some imagery from the ones that we publish with your permission. In that space. So we're not going to take your characters. We're not going to take your stories. We're not going to reproduce it. If you want to take Mr. Stupendous to Netflix, Ari's totally, it's his character. And so there's no There's no downside to publishing with us because you still own it. It's still yours.
Yeah.
With that said, we do have a whole big blog post about talking with your creative team about what they own and what you own. So if you create a character for a person who writes a story and they decide to go in a different direction, you've really got to talk it out and make sure that your character design or your story, who owns what, like understand what you're getting into with your team. So it's another thing that, we're real big on is understanding the business as well as the creation.
So basically anybody who's interested in participating with the comic book school has to understand the 3 C's, right? Check your ego at the door, right? Communicate and commit.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you can do those 3 things, then you found the right place.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, which is, as I'm listening to you guys, I'm trying to surmise it all, and those are the takeaways I took from it.
Sam's just taking it all in.
Sam's in. Sam's like, got it.
Got it.
You want knowledge?
I think we have a new member of our branding team.
I think so.
Yeah,
You need a
exactly.
job?
The 3 C's. No,
we
this
gotta
is
be careful. It's easy to accidentally volunteer for work on our
Next thing you know,
I got a tattoo already. Where'd it come from?
We'll call you.
Now, guys, and we didn't really talk too much about the anthology that you guys have right now, but what are some of the highlights? I know you guys, because I know you guys just don't do, it's not just all comics in the sense of sequential art. You also have, and you have a special name for it, and you guys tell me what it is, but it's for the prose area of the book. So you do have a couple of stories that are prose. What do you guys call those?
It's called the flash fiction.
Yes, flash fiction.
Yeah, flash fiction. And you know what? This time around, the book is more balanced. I think there's 11 flash fiction stories, I think, and 7 comic stories. And overall, it does a better balancing job for the whole anthology because, each flash fiction story takes up like 2 or 4 pages, whereas each comic story takes up 8 to 10, including the covers or whatnot. And, having that balance made it so that it's like 2 flash fiction, 1 comic, 2 flash fiction, 1 comic. And it's a really smooth read.
Nice.
Overall. And a lot of the flash fiction stories really kick tail. Can I say kick ass?
Yeah. Sure,
I forgot what kind of a program it is.
It's all good. I think I dropped an S-bomb before, so good, you're good with the
son of a but yeah, no, it's the flash fiction stories are all awesome.
Nice.
And there's some stories that have some extreme levels of sci-fi-ness, I guess.
Wow.
Is a good way of putting it. And yeah, man, like you think you gotta the theme is time in. The moment you mention time, it's like, all right, time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about time. There's a scientific idea right there. And some of those stories really went in deep with like a scientific theory and stuff. And it was just really awesome fiction to read and some really stellar artwork to go with it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm actually I'm going to ask you guys individually. I don't know how long we're going, but so I just want to, since you guys are on the show, I want to kind of talk about your story. So, Christian, what was your story that you threw in there, and what was it about, real quick?
So, mine's called the series I'm thinking of is called Interstitial. This particular one I called The Verdant Seekers. This was, I was thinking about the first story I did, and I was okay with it. I felt like I could have pushed it a little better into being more of like a character-driven story. So for this one, I wanted to think about how to take this gigantic, universe that I have all the details for in my head and figure out how do you tell a story about a couple of people who live in that gigantic universe and make it kind of interesting, which in 8 pages is extremely challenging. One of the complaints I had this time, I don't know who I emailed. I might have emailed Ari, and I was like, "Can I have 2 more pages?" And the answer was a hard no.
Damn.
So I did my best in 8 pages. So my story was thinking about these 2 detectives who live inside of the sealed dome in a city where no one can come in or out of it. And there's lots of reasons why that's that way. But so these guys stumble onto people who have who are supposed to be disfigured. So they basically their job is to find people who die and put them in the recycling plant for the city.
Oh, wow.
And they find so that's all they do. Their whole job is that, because there's really no crime in the city. Everything's self-contained. It's pretty easygoing. But so the one detective does not like his job. He thinks it's really not rewarding, and he is always looking for cases. And his partner is like, just do your job. Who cares? But this guy stumbles onto this mystery where he sees people who are supposed to have like weird disfigurements or like missing limbs and stuff, but like they'll have all their limbs, or like a scar will be gone. Scars will be in places compared to their records. And he's like, there's something going on here. What's going on? So he traces it all back to this hotel that's in the city. And he goes to his partner. He's like, there's a hotel in the middle of a city where no one can come in or out. Why is there a hotel here? And his partner's like, who cares? Right. So basically the story goes on where they end up, their investigation leads them there. And then I won't spoil the 8th page surprise. So that's the background idea.
And you're the artist and the writer.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Did you have like a letterer or a colorist, or you did all that?
That was me. Yeah, I did all that. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris? What do you got?
My comic story this time around was one of my old IPs from my film days. What if something in the Middle Ages happened, and in modern day time, the church is about to uncover it in a dig in the middle of the Middle East. And the whole story takes place in a tavern where 2 assassins who are supposed to keep this secret, underground, they're debating on ways to kill this guy, this archaeologist, before he gets to the dig site.
Nice.
So the whole story is just them like, how do we do it? How are we going to do them in? That's one story, and that was drawn by Filipino artist Roy. He's incredible. And the second story I did, the flash fiction I did, was the flash fiction story was cool because I actually got to work on one of my father's IPs. Yeah, he's a writer creator himself, and getting my hands in his toy box was very fun. And his overall story is called CF1, and my story is the story takes place in a hotel where a guy is frozen in time or frozen in space or whatnot, and he's trying to figure out what the hell's happening to him while his entire police squad is getting slaughtered all around him, and he can't figure it out. And so the whole thing is told in first person, and it's like in his head what's going on. And so it's very like, the writing is very jagged and it's very sharp and quick, and like, what the hell was that? Oh my god, what was that sound? Oh my god, there's this going on, there's that going on. Why can't I move? What's this thing slithering on my neck? I'm bleeding all of a sudden, tell me why. And so yeah, so that was a very fun story to write, and that's called Frozen Carnage.
I'll just say Chris's stuff is like my favorite in both of the anthologies. I mean, I like a lot of it, but his stuff always really stands out. Everybody should go read it. It's really great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Definitely gotta do that.
Chris did win an award for his short story, one of the standout stories of the first anthology. So although we did win awards for like best anthology for a couple of things, but his story stood out and won on its own because
everybody should go get Teddy's. I bought it when he put the whole
Teddy's is awesome.
Teddy's is really good.
Yes.
But I really liked the Corrupted. I really like how it read. I really like how it was drawn.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Look who's
you.
Jesus now. Look who's Jesus now.
He's doing all right.
For Jesus.
My head just got like 3 sizes bigger. It's gonna burst.
Nah, that's awesome.
Seriously.
That's awesome. So, indeed, saving the best for last. So, what do you got on yours?
So just like always, I didn't finish my comic, which I'm finishing now because I worked on everybody else's stuff. It's becoming a rather untoward theme with me. But I did get to work on...
Your sacrifice is appreciated.
So I'm the one that actually...
have a book without her.
That sacrifice.
put the book together.
We would not have a book without D. So,
Yeah, that sacrifice is what got you to Jesus. But go ahead.
Right?
That's true.
Such a religious community it turns out.
Didn't even know it. So I got
that.
to work as a colorist on one of the flash fiction pieces. It was actually
cool.
illustrated by Darren Sanchez, who is a former Marvel editor and a good friend of Buddy's. And he was actually on Comic Book School show when this airs, a couple weeks ago. But he's a good guy. And so I got to color that, and he kind of gave me art direction on that. So that was a lot of fun. And that one is just called The Time In. It's got the king of the Fae, a dragon, and Thor. So you'll know it when you see it. It's really fun. The other thing I got to do was 2 of the pages in Mr. Stupendous this year. Mr. Stupendous versus Dr. Wen. Because Ari took a page out of Rob's book from last year and basically said that he wanted to work with a bunch of different artists.
Yeah.
It was experience for him because he found out what it was like to herd cats, but we all did a couple of pages, some of us more than others. A couple of people had to drop out due to personal reasons, so we had to catch up and back and forth. But I got to do the first 2 pages in that story, so that was a lot of fun. Each one is done in a different age of comics. So I got to do present day comics, which was done in Ariel style. She did the story last year. And then I got to do the golden era page. So I got to basically draw Mr. Stupendous from like an homage shot from Action 1 comics, like Superman of the car. It was so cool. So that was a lot of fun. And then I put the book together. So that's what I do is as I go through and I'm like, hi, you have 4 pages. I need 8 pages. Where are the other 4 pages? So yeah, that was a struggle, but
the Mr. Stupendous story also came out really cool. I liked your contribution on that. I thought that was a really neat idea that I pulled off really well there.
I remember reading
really nailed it.
Yeah, I remember reading a script back when we were like posting the first steps on the boards or whatnot. And I remember saying, this is an amazing story. Yeah. I cannot wait to see how it gets put together. I want to know how it's going to get done. And to see the final pages, I was like, oh my God, this is cool. Then you turn the page. Oh my God, this era, this is cool. So it's really cool to see how he was able to find artists who were able to, replicate the different eras, time eras in comics. So it's a very fun story. I love that story.
I read it, and without stopping, I literally texted Ari. I chatted to him. I was like, I'm not even done reading it. I want 2 pages.
No, that's good. Listen, you guys are definitely, I think everybody who's watching needs to go read the book and check both of them out, because you have 2 anthologies out now, and they're free on the website, right? comicbookschool.com. You can just download it for free. So make sure that everybody... Yeah, it's a free download, so check it out. Guys, we can be on here forever because you guys all have very interesting stories, and I'd love to have you guys back. Maybe one-on-one. D, you're going to have to just come out here on your own, okay? Yeah,
okay.
just the 3 of us, just have a conversation. Exactly.
I can totally do it.
We are friends now. Christian, we'd love to have you back. Chris,
sure.
You're welcome whenever. You guys have been amazing. You guys want to give us your individual handles? Where can people reach each one of you? We'll start with you, D. Where can they find you?
So first and foremost, on the Comic Book School forums at create.comicbookschool.com. You sign up and find me on there. I answer messages pretty quickly unless we're in production. That's 1 month where I'm pretty much out of sorts. But I'm also at redheadeded.com. I know it looks funny, but it's a double ED because they're my initials. I'm also at redheadeded at Twitter.
Okay, cool. What about you, Chris? Where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Tales Beyond, or my personal handle is Chris.Burgos, Chris with a K. Yes. You can also find me at talesbeyond.com. That's my label. And I'm extremely slow at answering on the boards, but you can find me at the CBS boards, message boards and everything. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I am Live Tales Beyond, which I'm trying to get working on. I'm really bad with Twitter, but I'm also Jiggy KB, which is my gaming handle. Okay. So if you want to get down and play some like PS4 or something, Jiggy KB.
All right, cool. What about you, Christian? What you got?
The best way to look at me is on Instagram. I hate Twitter. I have a Twitter, but I feel like it's such a toxic place. I have trouble going there. But for Instagram, kds.art_and_stuff. I put like music videos I put up and drawings, and I try to self-promote. Is again one of the things I'm learning from the Sainted Buddy. I could be better, but if you message me, I'll definitely respond.
Gotcha. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being on. For the two of you again, for you, Christian, for the first time, thank you so much. And please make it a habit. Come through.
Sure.
Talk to us, chat with us, let us know what you guys are doing. Thank you so much. Hopefully you guys have already subscribed to the channel, so you'll be watching some more stuff that we're doing, because we got some really cool stuff coming up. But I really thank you guys for coming and giving us a little insight into how easy it can be to join a comic book community and be successful at it, as long as you work. It all has to do with that, right? You just got to put the work in. It's just what it is.
You get out what you put in.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Thank you guys so much, and we'll talk.
Thank
to
you for having us.
Yeah, thanks
All right.
very much.
Seriously.
Thank you, guys. All right.
Oh,
Like, hell no, we won't go.
I'm always the last. All right.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Later, guys.
Yeah, so
That's awesome.
that was the comic book school. Let me move this logo. Again, if you want to get down, you understand, check your ego at the door. Learn to communicate and commit, right? Independents are infamous for not finishing what they start. So, if you want to, and then, you get down with a reputable crew and, get some recognition, some notoriety, get some experience under your belt. Everyone wants to work for Marvel until they have to work for Marvel. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it's like, here's your way of being in a structured environment, learn some discipline, work collaboratively in a team, and get things going.
That's right.
Get things popping.
Get it popping.
Yeah.
Get serious about your stuff. Join the comic book school. It's easy. The guys are very supportive. As you can see, it's a camaraderie that, you can ask them for whatever it is that you need, and they'll help you out. So, yeah, no, that was cool. It was nice to have him back. Ari, hope you get better, buddy, soon. And, we'll chat with you too. But yeah, that was awesome, man.
It was really good interview. And I love the structured shows. I love having, I love having the talent and the guests on the show. These guys are really, it's amazing how they're able to do what they do, and not charge a dime.
I know.
Crazy.
I know, bro. I know. The fact that they're not even charging you for this is free.
Yes.
That's crazy.
What's
that
the
is
matter
crazy.
you? How can you cannot finish what you start, eh?
Yo, finish it. Finish it.
Yeah.
Don't balk at it either, man. If there's a theme, go with it. Like,
stop acting up.
Stop saying I don't want to do it. Yeah, exactly. Stop acting. That's the ultimate acting up right there, bro. Stop acting up.
I can tell you, I count on all my fingers and my toes all the people I know that started something, never finished it. You know what I'm saying?
Dude,
or have a hard time working with others.
Right.
Taking direction. Everybody wants to drive that, but not everybody has a license. It's like, relax, play your position.
Sometimes you got to be the passenger, bro.
Yes.
When
you're in when you're in the field, you're part of a unit. When you're up at bat, that's that individual achievement. All right. Now you get to show. That's when when you're in the field, that's when you guys are in that talent box, writer, artist, colorist, letterer. Everyone's collaborating and talking, and boom. Now, when you're sitting down doing your part, that's that individual achievement. But you got to learn to communicate with your team in order for you to win, or get close to, or even try to win the game.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. 100%. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget that Forbidden is on right now on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. So go pledge to those.
Yes.
If you're Team Kickstarter, go there. If you're Team Indiegogo, go there. You don't have to go to both unless you want to. But yeah, no,
let's
definitely,
get to 100 backers,
support
man.
the
Let's
Kickstarter.
get to 100 backers.
Let's go.
Can
Let's
I do it this time? The only way I can do it is with you. So
hopefully we're there.
So support your boy. Let's get to what the hell? Let's get to that. Let's get to that 100 backers. But with that said, I appreciate every single one of you. I am Sam, the Crazy Man Vera.
George, the Dreamer Medina.
And we are out.
It's just easy. It's not.
Crazy. No, I was talking about my friend Laquise. I met him. Say my name, right?
This is what you were thinking? Oh,
he described me. He said, I'm the
What? Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the craze.
You are listening to Catch the Craze on It's Craze.
You're listening to Catch the Craze.
Candy girl.